So I'm arrived in Indy with these new scooters and I'm ready to go to the PRI Show. Let's check it out.
So here I am at the 2018 PRI Show. I'm at the Ford booth. You know, every year I come here expecting to see something different, and I'm really not seeing too much different stuff here. So I'm going to just kind of walk around the show and see a few things. And I'm trying to do is get a hold of some clutch people to go over and see different clutches and possibly do a video on clutches. Hopefully I'll be successful doing that. Okay, I'm at the McLeod booth, and if you're a McLeod customer, you must represent the brand hashtag McLeod Equipped, okay, on Facebook and Instagram. There you go. Check them all out on those social media pages. So I've dealt with McLeod for years. They get some really cool products for street cars, not for racing, but I really like their product line. They've kind of really focused on making things to work in every make and model car that you need to kind of do every cool conversion you'd want with every transmission in every car. That's a big leap. That's really hard to do, but they did do it. So let me go through some of the items for you. This is the typical bell housing, and if you notice, it's a modular bell housing with all sorts of different applications and adapters. They actually also make what they call choke rings to fit inside these bores to adapt different transmissions to different housings. You got their classic release bearing. This is a beautiful release bearing, very low profile bearing. They have one that this one slips on to, okay, it's adjustable, okay, and if you see it slips right onto the front snout of a transmission, and it's held on with these little O-rings. These work really well, but they also happen to have this system set up where you can actually have a one-piece bearing retainer with this bearing in place. So for your clutch systems on your kit cars, you can use something like this. These lines are pinned in place, very important. You see the way they have these pins here? These pins keep it from pulling out or people messing and screwing up the O-rings, which a lot of people used to do in the old days. So I'm here with Joe Dietrichs from Dietrichs Motorsports, and he also works at McLeod. Known Joe for many years. We've run into one another at shows. So I want Joe to explain to you guys the difference between on the Street Twins, the RST, the RXT, and the RXT 1200.
What's great about the RST and RXT line, you can bolt them to your factory flywheel, so it doesn't cause you to have to go get a specialized flywheel for them. So the car that you have now, you can pull your regular stock clutch set out and usually use these in the place of that. And obviously these will hold a lot more horsepower.
So the 800 horsepower one uses the stock flywheel.
It does. It uses the stock flywheel.
Got it. Okay.
Right. And so does the 1,000 horsepower.
So, okay, so it looks like it's got some sort of pin mechanism that bolts to that. Is that what that is?
It does.
Right.
We've got a pretty unique ring system here. If you look at the ring system, it goes around here. And what's interesting is the same clutch here can fit in any of the other vehicles because we have the ring plate drilled for it, okay?
So the ring plate is what adapts the twin setup to the flywheel, basically.
That is correct.
Got it. Okay.
So we've got that patented design. You know, both clutches are relatively really nice to drive on the street. And this one here supports 800 crank horsepower. The RXT would support 1,000 horsepower. The difference between them actually is just going to be the facings of them. One will be made, you know, ceramic. This will be the 300 series organic.
Got it.
This one here is butter smooth. In some applications, if you were going to drag race the clutch and get it hot many times over, while you may not need 800 horsepower, you certainly wouldn't need the 1,000 horsepower. We may want to go ahead and upgrade you to the metal clutch because that will never glaze. You can kind of run it hard and put it up wet and go over and over again. So it's a wonderfully durable clutch.
Do you find that one would cause chatter problems over the other?
Not necessarily. What I will say is that these clutches are extremely durable. And what I mean by that, we do not have a sprung hub here.
Okay.
And upon initial engagement, in some instances, it can vibrate a little bit. It'll oscillate, so it'll come out, and you can feel a little bit of a vibration sometimes.
Because I found that sometimes when people use organic line clutches as opposed to, say, puck-type Kevlar, like the puck-type Kevlar can tend to chatter more or until it heats up. And
they bite quicker.
Right, they bite quicker.
They heat faster and they bite quicker, which we want them to. That's what helps them hold. So
right.
Yes, in fact, that does. One thing they did for the metal clutch, the RXT, they marcelled the facing
Okay.
touches first, and that put a wave pattern in there.
So that gives it a little bit of a cushion.
It does. Not all of it touches at one time, so it's extremely durable and extremely smooth for being a solid metal clutch.
So tell me about this MagForce clutch.
Okay, the MagForce clutch is what we use when we need something with lower centrifugal mass. And what I mean by that, if you notice, the disc are
Smaller disc.
much smaller disc.
Is it an
absolutely.
8-inch or a 7-inch?
It's an 8-inch.
An 8-inch
And,
clutch.
We've got two different models of that, so you can get it in larger or smaller. What's nice about them, even a twin, roughly on most models, runs somewhere around 20 pounds, 20, 22 pounds, somewhere in between there.
Wow.
We offer them in ceramic disc or also centered iron disc. Okay?
This is your conventional post type of floater.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
With your disc there. Very simple setup like that.
Very simple, extremely quick release, nothing faster than that. The only thing I can say about this clutch, it may not be 100% positive, would be that at idle, at neutral, it will have a tendency
tend to creep.
Yeah. It will make a little noise on you. It'll rattle a little bit because of the floater plate.
Right, because these are going to be rattling around just a little bit.
Absolutely.
This is compressed right now, but when you got this pedal down, pressed against it, these floaters here are going to be floating and doing their job,
Yep.
and they're going to be bouncing around possibly on these pins over here.
That is correct.
Yeah. It's a beautiful piece.
Absolutely. For road racing, pin drive system, there's nothing better. You
Right.
don't damage any straps, and it's quick releasing, and low centrifugal mass means not a lot of mass is spinning around where the synchronizer has to slow it down. A lot of great advantages right here in that clutch.
Right. So for road racing on the synchro box, this would be ideal because you're not stressing out the synchronizers as much.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, on the synchro box, it's instrumental in terms of its transition. It'll help immensely, but it also helps on a dog ring box.
True.
The key to doing a dog ring box and using lighter materials is faster transition, and this only accentuates it.
Right.
It helps both boxes in a great way.
Thanks. Good to know. This one over here, which this is a typical, your old three-finger style clutch here.
It is. Now, this is an old school style. I say an old school style. This is a drag racing clutch with new technology.
Right.
And it offers our soft lock system. And this is what we would consider a drag racing clutch.
Right.
And it allows for slippage at a certain point and transition. So,
Right. Soft lock.
Yep.
And that basically is really good for people so you don't break stuff, so you don't break rear ends and drive shafts and transmissions, because it's going to slip a little bit on engagement, not shock load the whole system and break things.
Absolutely. And you can see here where you can also set it. It's got several parts to it that are quite transitional.
So basically, the more you let these out, the more you're going to apply. The more you pull them in, the springs, the easier it's going to be.
Yep.
Now, I mean, when they do something like this, it says more or less pressure. Can you dial in such less pressure that you can burn your clutch up?
Well, yeah, you can get out of hand, absolutely.
Yeah,
I can't eliminate that variable, but absolutely.
So, yeah, the thing is this a trial and everything? So when you buy this particular clutch setup with all these things, it's obviously pre-adjusted. So, I mean,
it is. You want to go back in and set it because you want to get your car dialed in. Okay.
But a person has to be pretty precise in setting these up because you've got all these different pieces here, and obviously this one can't be tighter than that one. So how do they know?
One of the best things you can do if you buy this clutch on the website, we have a video that shows the complete setup on that, and you can run through it. A picture being worth 1,000 words, a video perhaps is worth 1,000,000.
Is the video on your company's YouTube channel?
It's on McLeod's.
Yes, sir. McLeod's YouTube channel. Yeah. I've always recommended this type of clutch for the drag guys. It's a little bit more difficult for them to deal with release bearings maybe, or whatever they have to do sometimes, but it's the way to go.
Absolutely. It's an unbelievably quick release, just a tried and proven system.
Right. It's the old three-finger clutch system. What was the name for it?
There was Ford and a long style.
The long style clutch.
Borgenbeck.
You got the Borgenbeck, which had the fatter fingers on them, right?
Yes.
But these are the long style ones, were the ones that were adjustable most of the time.
And that design's the quickest releasing system of all of them, respectively.
And this is a solid hub. Are all these systems solid hubs
Pretty
as well?
much on that, absolutely.
Right.
I mean, we do that for strength and durability.
So I'm at the X-Clutch booth at PRI, and X-Clutch is actually an Australian company, and this is their US brand of clutch. So let's go take a look at their clutches. So what you got here is a typical post system, but this post system is part of the actual clutch cover. You got your floater plates, disc, floater plates, disc, and flywheel. And notice that this flywheel is lightened here. You got a beautiful lightened area on this flywheel. And look how beautiful the machine these sintered iron discs are. Okay, and they're all basically going to be a solid disc. Notice no sprung hub or anything. This particular clutch hub here is for a Toyota, and notice that it has a sprung center on it. I don't know if you can see that sprung center. Pretty interesting. But notice the posts now are part of the flywheel. So again, you got floaters that go onto these posts. So you got flywheel, clutch disc, flywheel, clutch disc. Now if we look here, when this thing is all together, it's all being splined, and these clutch discs are all splined together. Here, you see the way you get the spline from this hub? It's going to hold this disc onto that spline, and the float is going to be part of that as well. So a little bit of a different design twist to it at all. But pretty much, again, pretty much everything is doing the same thing. And now on this other clutch here that we have is their street clutch that they use pretty much in a lot of the regular street cars that you would use here in the States, but also in Australia you would use them, let's say, in a Holden, Tirana, or Monero, or something like that. So they got a 9.5-inch clutch here, single disc clutch, sprung hub.
The numbers you're talking are quite.
And notice the way they have these fingers like this. These are regular diaphragm clutches.
It's obviously not an everyday.
Strap type. This is called the strap type drive system. See these straps over here? These straps are which actually drive the pressure plate underneath here. So it's the straps that actually drive the plate. And here's your flywheel. So I'm at the Advanced Clutch Technology booth, or ACT, and I'm with Rich.
Rich Barsamian.
Rich is going to explain to me the monolock system of this clutch system. It looks really unique, a lot different than anything that I've seen. So explain it to me. What's this about? First of all, what kind of cars does this go with in an Evo?
Yeah, this goes in an Evo. We also make them for Subarus as well. So these are the pull style clutches. And what happens is the original piece looks like this. And this wire here can get like this and get sort of
caught
out of there. And when that happens, good luck with that release bearing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we've invented is a great little product called the monolock. And the monolock, just going to get this in here like this. See it right there. That's in there now.
So you replace this kind of wire basket thing,
right, with this
system here, like
so
this.
So now no more of that
wiring
that can get caught up. You eliminate that problem. You're going to have trouble-free issues with the release bearing going forward.
So how does it lock into it? Then you have this outer piece that goes on top of it, like a little swage type of connector here.
Right. So we can actually pull it the whole thing out. You can see the little springs and everything that are in there, but actually part of the actual clutch itself is what it's going into. So that's these parts here.
So you have like wave washers that go in there then, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Little wave springs.
Now can anybody retrofit an original clutch, or they have to use your clutch system for this?
No, that's the beautiful thing. You can use this on any clutch.
So you can basically get the monolocks piece
sold separately.
Yep. Or you can buy their whole clutch.
Yep.
So, and your clutches, of course, are beautiful high-performance clutches, SFI rated, all of that stuff like that. And is this a single disc clutch normally that they use on these cars?
That's correct, yes.
Right. Well, explain to me some of your other clutches here then. These are great.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that sets us apart from other clutch manufacturers is we manufacture all of our own diaphragm springs from scratch.
Oh, fantastic.
And that allows us to actually have a lot more control over engineering. So if we were to buy OEM diaphragm springs from a supplier and we just change the pivot point to increase the clamp load increase over stock, the problem with that can be if you start to change the geometry too much, you're going to have more travel. If you have more travel, you're going to have more wear. So we go for the best of both worlds. How do we do it so that we can get the most clamp load increase over stock, but the least amount of travel? And that's what we go for. Then, in addition to that, as we're designing them, like on this one here, we'll put this little rib in here. And when we put that rib right there, that's going to make this part of the diaphragm spring over 4 times stronger.
Sure.
And we don't have to use a big fat spring now, so your pedal effort's going to feel great.
Right.
As you go to engage the clutch and
that makes sense too, because you're releasing basically a stress riser by putting that rib there.
Absolutely. And then every single one of these has a proprietary 4-stage heat treat that we do to strengthen this part of the clutch for the diaphragm spring. So that's a really big deal. The other thing about our clutches is everything is rated by the torque you're making at the crank. So that's what we care about. That's all a clutch really always cares about. People will talk about horsepower. They'll talk about stages. We don't like to talk about stages because what may mean stage 1 to one customer might mean stage 2 to another customer. We'd rather just say, what's the torque you're making at the crank? And then by using that, you're going to know exactly which clutch to use from ACT. We list all of that on our website, and that's how we make our listings more prominent. The other thing that we do on our discs is we have a dual spring technology inside every single disc. This is a street disc here, and you can see the other spring inside.
Right.
So those are basically used to damper the torsional vibration from the input shaft.
Sure.
Because we want to preserve the splines on this, right?
Well, do you find, especially, these are 6-cylinder and 4-cylinder engines that you're running, so they're more prone, especially if you're using lightweight wheels with harmonic vibrations chattering the gearboxes and so forth. So do you find that by doing this, you're able to tune it better so you don't have those harmonics getting transmitted into the transmission?
Absolutely.
Because typically on a box that has a very light wheel, like on a 4-cylinder or a 6-cylinder, what you're going to happen is that you're going to get this kind of transmission rattle in neutral until it revs up and these things start getting loaded properly.
That's right.
So you've got basically the best of the both worlds, maybe static dampening where it's rotating and not being able to do this, right? And then load it up more too. When you do the RPMs, you got more dampening.
That's right. That's 100% correct. And our organic discs have a high copper content, so copper is really a great dissipator of heat evenly. That works very well. And then here we've got the springs here so that we can adjust them ourselves to get just the right feel for the engagement of the clutch.
Nice.
And then every one of these windows also has the 4-stage proprietary heat treat to ensure that those
doesn't
springs,
crack and come apart.
Stay in place. Yeah. And again, as you mentioned, SFI approved. It meets all the SFI specs.
So tell me about this clutch now. This is how many clutch discs do we have here? One, two, three disc clutch?
Yep, this is a triple disc clutch setup for like the Toyota Supras, the 2JZ engines.
Okay.
And something like this is going to hold up to 1,200 foot-pounds of torque at the crank, and really super harsh engagement. It's based for just locking up so you can get a great launch.
It's for the drifters guys.
Drifter guys,
right?
Yeah, it just absolutely holds the power.
And this flywheel is a chromoly flywheel. Is that what you said it was?
That's right. It's all one-piece chromoly steel, and basically that gear that you see on there is not pressed on. That's all one piece.
Nothing can come apart on
Yeah.
you.
So if that gear comes off, you got other problems, right?
And this here is another type of dual disc system for.
Right, and this is just really to be able to explain how the twin is working, what you're seeing. So the first you have your flywheel here, and then you have your first discs here, set of discs, and this has got the contact here, and then we've got another face right there.
Right.
And the next disc is here, and then you've got your face from the back of your pressure plate right there.
Right.
And then of course that's just basically taking all that power and just increasing its ability to hold more power.
Basically more surface area and a tighter form factor.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Perfect.
And again, these are super high torque. A lot of drifters use these. A lot of road race guys use these, and it just depends on the application. But one of our more popular setups. And then on the street stuff, we've got our street stuff here. Hold over 750 foot-pounds of torque at the crank, and
So it's a street dual disc clutch.
Yeah, a dual disc clutch. It's got adjustable straps. You've got a lot of.
Now, tell me about adjustable straps. That's something that I've not seen before.
Right. So on the adjustable strap, you could actually go in there and change this. So if you had some slipping happening or something was going on after a bunch of wear, you could actually remove one of these strips and leave two in there, and you would get it would close back up, and you would get better engagement. Sorry.
But you're driving through the straps, so
right.
There's no problem if you remove some of them?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Because once it's clamped, it's clamped. It's not really, right.
And
so a typical person who's running, like, say, an old school car with like a small block Chevy, like in a 67 Chevelle, something really old. We got all this high-tech stuff now. What is something like that they would use?
They would use something more like this design here. We make a single disc design for those folks, and basically with all of that, a lot of times a single disc setup will work just as good. The way that ours are manufactured, you don't even need a twin.
Right.
Mainly when we recommend a twin is when someone's making so much torque, like the new Mustangs, the new Camaros,
That they're
the new
burning them up
Chryslers.
with single
Well,
disc.
that, and then you want that pedal feel to feel real good, right?
Right.
So by having the dual disc design, it makes that pedal feel,
But
pretty much like stock and factory.
what I find that a lot of times in certain dual disc setups, one of the problems is that people are having disengagement issues. In other words, they're not getting good release. Is that basically because they're just not adjusting them correctly, or the floaters are hanging up? What happens there?
Those are typically the two reasons why. Yeah,
Right.
especially the floaters. Yeah. No,
Because
that can happen.
most of the complaints that I get in my shop are people saying, I've got this twin disc clutch from whatever, and it's grinding in reverse. I can't get it into first gear, which is typical of a problem where somebody is basically having a clutch release issue like that. But it usually tends to be more with dual disc setup. So I'm thinking either they don't have their heights right, or something's off, or like you said, the straps could be off a little bit.
Or even misalignment.
A misalignment. Well,
That's
big time.
big time.
Misalignment on a dual disc is much more problematic than on a single disc.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Right.
And here's a better shot of that flywheel. So
Sure.
you can see it. And again, all one piece chromoly steel.
Beautiful.
forging. And our engineers pride themselves on really taking the time. when
Is
they
this
do these
particular
drawings.
flywheel something that you could use for a regular street car, like a small block Chevy type car? Or is this
Absolutely, yeah. And we make them, that's a great question. So we make them in two different types. We make street light, which is typically a little bit lighter than stock, and then
Right.
we make pro light for racing. So it's
So,
going to be a
but it's still
snappier
all
throttle
chromoly
response.
steel.
Correct, it's all
Right.
still chromoly steel.
Awesome. So
But
what is
yeah.
like the typical weight of a regular light one, or the street light?
They vary quite a bit, but I'd say they're about 5% lighter than
Stock
than
nodular iron wheel, something like that.
Yeah, and
These are
we
beauties.
list all the weights on the site. So we list the weights of all the parts shipped, but also raw. So if a racer really wants to know, or someone really needs to get down to the actual facts, they can figure out exactly what it's going to
I
be.
think I might start selling some of these. These look beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. Really
Thank you
appreciate
so
it,
much.
Rich.
Nice to
Okay.
meet you, man.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so here we have the ATS full carbon clutch. It's a quadruple full carbon clutch. This one's for the C5 Corvette. Total clamping force 800 kilos, which is roughly about 1,900 pounds. So it's a really simple clutch. Kind of works like an automatic wedge clutch system. Got your whole diaphragm spring assembly over here. Flip it over. You've got your pressure plate. Now these pressure plates are unique that they have these buttons on that can be positioned in different places. Works on this kind of system over here. So the farther in, probably more, the farther out, gives you type of different pressure ratings. Flip it around. Got your inside clutch hub. There you go, one facing. Notice this is splined to the inside hub, which floats on the transmission spline. And on the outside goes against the case. So just again like an automatic clutch system, very simple. But these discs are extremely light. These are very light pieces, amazingly light. Neat, huh? That beautiful what? Look at the machine work on this. Absolutely gorgeous. There you go. So as you can see, this particular hub will drive on the input shaft spline, the transmission. Start with one disc down. I'm going to build this up for you here. I'm going to try to get this all together, not screw it up. There we go. And these are obviously vented for heat, these discs. And again, these are extremely light. What I kind of like about this system too is that they're not going to rattle that much because of the fit is so precise on these. It's amazing. There you go. The ATS full carbon clutch. So I'm at Crower. Is that how I pronounce it? Crower? And they make some of the most unique clutches. I really like these clutches. I just want to go over a bit about these clutches. Just you said it's for tractor pulling?
Diesel tractor.
Diesel tractor. Explain to me like what these, they can dial in the pressures of the springs
Yeah,
with
you
these?
can dial in preload and the pressure plate preload.
pressure, so you dial in pressure plate preload, and so each one of these clutches kind of has the same system on it.
Basically, yeah.
Right. So these all have you could dial in pressure plate preload with these, and then this particular one is obviously a multiple disc clutch. This would be for like what, a pro stock type of car?
Dragster or a Pro Mod, something like that.
So what kind of force can these things handle?
Force as far as horsepower goes?
Yes.
3,000, 4,000 horsepower.
3,000, 4,000 horsepower. Wow, look at that. So, and these are just basically goes down. How are they usually activated? Are they by pedal or by
this is a
computer?
pedal clutch. It's not an automatic clutch.
Right.
It has a throwout bearing just like in your pickup truck. You push
Right.
the pedal in, it disengages the clutch, you let it out, the car goes.
Got it.
Pretty simple.
And this one here you said is for mud type?
This is like a mud racer or a two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, tractor pulling, or truck pulling, something like that.
What makes something different than the other, like to be used for mud racing or as
The
opposed?
diameters of the clutch, this is an 11-inch, this is a 10-inch.
Okay.
Horsepower ratings, most drag racers you run a titanium unit with. This is all titanium, this one's all aluminum.
So the light and the strength.
Yeah.
Fascinating, fascinating. Well, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. Okay, so I got this Leander's 11-inch clutch set up here for the alcohol funny car, the Pro Mod, Pro Extreme, and Outlaw cars. It's an 11-inch clutch. I figure you guys would like to see what this thing looks like. So the basis of any of these lever clutch systems is you got a simple lever, and if you notice, the plate is moving up and down over here. These springs are all the way compressed. There's an adjuster for the spring right over here. And obviously, if I let these adjusters out more, it's going to let the spring open up like this, and that's going to give you more tension on the clutch. So here the springs are all the way pulled back so we can actually see how the mechanism works. And in any multi-plate clutch, you're going to have what's called a floater, which is this piece over here, and then discs below. And so they all stack up and have multiple plates. These Leander clutches are very unique in that the posts for the floaters have a square edge, so it allows the floating plates to actually center better. It's a pretty neat setup. They have all different sizes. Small one here, I think 7, 8 inch. Then you got these 10-inch ones, and then all the way up to these 11-inch clutches over here. That's what they look like. All same principles. Lever clutches with adjustable spring mechanisms, only bigger, same basic form factor and design. Multi-plate systems with this unique post that's got these square edges on it for the floaters to basically locate correctly. Pretty interesting setup. Okay, so I'm at the Motor State All-Star booth and just wanted to show you Terry McMillian's Top Fuel Dragster. A few things a lot of guys don't realize: Top Fuel Dragsters do not have transmissions. Clutch, multiple plate clutch with multiple fingers, and a 12-inch ring gear, 3.2 ratio. Look at that billet rear. Amazing, huh? All solid billet. Ring gears inside there, speed sensors, clutch housing, no transmission. So these are some clutches from Exceedi. This is for a Nissan Skyline R32 clutch that they call. It's a puck type system, sprung hub, typical conventional pressure plate. You can also have organic linings. There's your flywheel. Same thing on this side for the 370Z. That's what the clutch looks like. It's a puck type clutch, but it's sprung. You can also have the organic lining if you'd like. Obviously, this is going to be much more aggressive on the launch as opposed to a full organic clutch with sprung hubs. So we got an Ls1 Chevrolet Clutch from Exceedi. Standard fare, nothing exciting, right? But here we got these Hyper Twin Organics. These are kind of neat, and I want to show you something about this here. So you've got this very cool looking pressure plate on it, and you can see the floaters. And again, these floaters are using basically pins and not straps. So if you see all these particular clutches, what you got is basically a pressure plate, a floating plate, a disc, a floating plate, a disc, and then your flywheel. And these flywheels have the stands and everything built right into it for the floaters. So you build everything up, and everything, when they say floats, that means these floating plates are going to be driven by these pegs over here, and they're going to just be spinning around with the wheel, but they'll be floating this way, so that once the pressure is applied, it's going to compress this whole stack down. That's pretty much how most of these multiple clutch plate systems work. Pretty basic. And how you drive the floater plates is what people are doing differently. Some people have a little square peg to drive the floaters, some are round. They're all doing this little different thing, but it basically achieves the same, end result. The other thing is that some of these floaters on street cars will tend to rattle more, so they'll be driving them with straps instead of them letting them bounce around pegs. And that's also an interesting part of creating a multiple disc system for the street, where the main concern is they still want them to be quiet and grip better, but then they don't want to have the noise of the floater plates rattling around. So I'm at the Quartermaster booth here, and they specialize in a lot of low-profile bell housings. I want you to notice how low-profile these bell housings are for usually dirt and modified types of clutches. So this particular clutch, you can look how small it is. Multi-plate clutch. And the whole trick of these particular clutches, as you know, we've been seeing how multi-plate clutches work, but it's just the diameter to keep the ground clearance really low. So this particular one over here has clutchless. It's just a drive for the transmission. You can actually see the spline for the transmission input, and it goes to an in and out box. There's no transmission, basically one gear in and out. And you've got a little bit of a pulley over here for a timing belt that kind of goes to an oil pump that mounts over here that basically lubricates the transmission, and of course start a ring gear. And here's another, again, low profile setup with a small multi-plate clutch as well. Another unique part of Quartermaster is they make this tri-light hydraulic bearing for these applications. These bolt to the inside of the bell housing with these three little holes over here. These go inside with the tri-lights. So here's another hydraulic release bearing, self-contained, that goes inside the register board of the transmission this way and the other side, obviously. And you can see the lines for that. That's how that works. All right, I'm at the AP Racing booth with Jack, and we're looking at a Formula One racing clutch. So Jack, tell me, these clutches are carbon fiber clutches?
Carbon.
And it says here, 9 out of 10 teams use this clutch, right?
Correct.
For Formula One. That's amazing. So I just want you guys to see how small these clutches are. You're talking about it's 97 millimeters, which is roughly about a little bit less than 4 inches. Look how tiny this is. They're the size of my hand. And
Titanium basket
so the baskets are titanium for lightweight, obviously.
and titanium retaining ring.
Amazing. I've seen like some of the titanium shift barrels in the transmissions and from X-Track and how light they are, but state-of-the-art stuff. Look at this. And how are these clutches normally applied? Like normally it's all computer controlled, or they're using a foot actually. They don't.
They're using hand control.
Hand control, so it's.
And they actually have launch control now on Formula One cars. I'm not completely up to that.
Right, so it's like a launch control mechanism. So everything fits into this basket basically. You can see here how the plates fit into these little grooves in the basket, and you build it up. Amazing technology. Thanks, Jack.
Sure, thank you.
So I'm at Ram Clutches, and they got several incredible clutches over here. This is a street long style clutch, a lever clutch. Over here you put your little weights on it that you can adjust your weight, so how much this thing kind of starts to grip as the RPMs come up. Obviously it's a solid hub clutch. Was this metallic in here?
Yeah, it's an aluminum pressure plate and a sintered iron disc.
Sintered iron disc. That's some pretty good grip on that one. And pretty much, what is your standard street clutch over here? What would that be? Something like this? Or as far as?
Street, this is our Pro Street series here.
Okay.
That'll hold you up to 1,000, 1,200 horsepower. This is dual disc.
Dual disc setup on
Yes.
it? Right.
We can do organic, metallic, or a combination thereof.
This one is a typical kind of dual type of composite. You got organic on one side and metallic pucks on the other side with encapsulated springs. That you're telling me that the springs are used for damping purposes, to have them encapsulated, they dampen better. We have another disc here, a solid hub on this. Notice no springs. Look at that beautiful hub on that. So here on this full drag race clutch for the Outlaw Series type of cars, it's good for about 1,500 horsepower, 1,400 horsepower. And you've got these levers here. These little ends of the levers are for different types of weights you can put on to kind of tune the clutch as far as how much it'll start to grip at higher RPMs. And here are your little spring pockets. What they're telling me is you make your adjustments with your springs. Initially they have it set up and you use a height gauge. You can use like say a depth mic or a caliper, and you start using your difference between this section over here and here. You measure your heights and you adjust accordingly to again dial in your initial type of static pressures and so forth. So the anodized aluminum flywheel, it's been lightened a little bit. Beautiful workmanship from Ram. Thanks guys.
No problem.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
So I'm at the Tilton booth and they have a full range of metallic and carbon clutches. Carbon clutches are what they're describing as ones that basically have carbon floaters and carbon clutch discs. Now if you notice from watching the videos, pretty much these clutches are all the same, except that people have their own little trick, different drive plate mechanisms and obviously clutch cover mechanisms and pressure plate assemblies. So here we have Tilton Racing's QT3 5.5 metallic racing clutch. What I want you to notice about this clutch, it's a fully metallic clutch. Nice, huh? And the floater plates, which are cool, look at the shape of these. Basically what they did was just maximize where they needed the plate to be held and then cut out all the rest, but left some nice radiuses and chamfers so they wouldn't break. And the floater plates, when they go against the clutch cover, there's steel thrust buttons, so you can run an aluminum cover but have a steel thrust button so you're not beating the hell out of the aluminum cover with a steel plate. They're fully rebuildable clutch assemblies and they're dynamically balanced. Tilton also offers a wide variety of hydraulic release bearings, all different shapes and sizes and configurations for low profile systems and actually street applications. Well, that was a great show. I'm kind of happy to be back at the shop because it's a lot warmer down here. But this brand, Centerforce Clutches, they weren't at the show, so I figured I'd go over the clutches here at the shop for you because I sell these clutches a little bit here and there, and I wanted to go over some of the little street performance things that they do that's a little bit unique and different than anybody else. So let's get to this. So I want to talk about these Centerforce clutches. If you notice, the other clutches we saw at the show, those 3-finger lever type clutches, where they had fingers every 120 degrees apart, 3 fingers, they had little places where you can bolt on weights. The Centerforce design has weights that are part of the diaphragm. So what happens here is that as you, I'm going to see if I can compress these a bit. So as you rev up the engine, the weights kind of come out. They force themselves against the diaphragm fingers and actually put more pressure on the pressure plate and give you more clamping force. And the idea behind this is that you can have an initial apply that's very soft because these weights are not in action. But as you rev up the vehicle and you get into a higher RPM for performance use, you're going to get more clamping load. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. So when the diaphragm is riveted to the cover, it's going to have to pivot and go like this. And when it does that, sometimes it's just pivoting against the nodular iron plate, but Centerforce has a pattern where they actually have ball bearings inside the plate, and so the diaphragm can actually work a lot easier rather than just be kind of grinding against metal to metal. So they actually have a ball bearing that is on the diaphragm. There's these little balls that go in each of these sections here, and the diaphragm kind of rolls around the balls and makes it a lot easier to apply and release. A little bit smoother operation. That's one little thing that they also do. So another thing I want to point out is the drive straps on these clutches. Usually these performance clutches are going to have a little bit more robust strap mechanism. The strap is what holds the pressure plate to the clutch cover. So as the cover pulls the plate around, it's being pulled by these straps actually. So, and also on the back side of this, you can see the weights and how they work on the back end, how they're against these fingers. A lot of people don't like these, but you want to know, I've sold quite a bit of these and never had any issues with them at all. And so these pressure plates themselves, they are made out of a nodular iron and they're a little bit beefier than normal plates so that they can reduce the heat and be a better heat sink for high heat applications. So that's what these covers look like. Now, a normal organic lining like this, it's organic on both sides, they still have dual springs on their Center Force 2 clutches. These seem to be pretty nice setups. Another thing that most people don't realize is if you want to look at the rivets here, you want to look at how these rivets are put in, because a lot of linings are only riveted with one row of rivets, and that can have a tendency of the rivets to shear and the lining come apart. Or sometimes the best practice is to have the lining actually bonded to the Marcel and also have the rivets on it as well. But these are dual riveted. This is pretty standard fare. Now we can see on this one over here, this is their dual friction clutch, and you can see that these parts of the dual friction are actually bonded. They're glued to it, and you can see here the rivets come through on the opposite side that bond the regular organic lining to this kind of Kevlar bonded type lining that they use. Some people use linings that are Kevlar pucks, some use linings that are metallic. This looks like a combination of a Kevlar organic type of lining. It's pretty interesting. This is designed to actually clamp very fast. It builds up a lot of heat, and you lose some surface area because you have less area, but the idea is you're going to get more PSI and more heat, so it's going to lock up faster. And these clutches I usually don't like using on the street that much because they can tend to chatter and be a little choppy depending on how the vehicle is set up. Well, that was a really fun show to go to. Every year I really enjoy the PRI show more and more. There's a lot of interesting stuff out there that one could see. You could spend days there just looking at parts and looking at the way people have interesting approaches to doing things. Each year, I think the level of engineering goes up as materials get easier to manufacture. The sky's the limit. It's really mind-blowing, and I'm really happy to be part of it. So thank you for watching, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. It would mean a lot to me, and see you soon. Now, I'll be doing some other videos on some race transmissions that I build here, and actually I'm going to pull apart a stock clutch and one of these Center Force clutches so you can decide if it's worth it. And that's going to be in another video down the line. I've been working on that idea and I got some parts, so it's going to be really cool. So again, thanks for watching. See you soon.